what did Edgar Cayce say about psychic development? And what are soul readings? And what are the many different ways that spirit speaks to us?
Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
Hello, this is Angelscapes, and I am your host, Nancy Smith. Joining me tonight in this episode is Susan Barnes for a conversation about the types of conversations spirit, soul, and the Akashic Records may have with us to help us guide us, nurture our spiritual learning, and grow. Edgar Cayce, the Sleeping Prophet, spoke straight from the Akashic Records about physical, emotional, and mental healing. Physical mediumship shows us the physical presence that spirit can share with us, and spirit art reveals a visual aspect of the presence of spirit that we can usually only sense. So Susan and I are going to talk about how those could be connected and the richness of spirit communication. So welcome, Susan, to this podcast. I'm thrilled that you're here.
So am I. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You know, we're going to be doing something later in Lilydale in June, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, I'm going to just talk to people a little bit about who you are, what you do. You're just a very well-educated, lots of experience. You've done tremendous amount of things and promoted spirit communication, mediumship, as well as the Edgar Cayce teachings. And you're a professor. You taught at Fordham University and the Rochester Institute of Technology. And you originally received a degree from art from Pratt University. I could have lived your life, Pratt Institute. And you're a professional graphic designer in New York City. And I feel like eventually you became interested in spiritualism and you became an international medium and a spirit artist. And you own currently the Spirit Art Gallery in Lilydale, New York, and it's spiritartgallery.net, where you regularly teach art classes. You're a certified medium, and you hold a certificate holder. It's from the Spiritualist National Union, and you taught at the SNU Institute. So you've been around, done a lot, and
I'm an overachiever.
I could talk for hours. Well, nothing wrong with being an overachiever when you get to the point where you are, where you have a lot to say. But welcome. Where would you like to start with this spirit communication? It's all been about soul work and all been about developing yourself, it seems like.
Yeah, what happened was originally I was a communication professor. So when I moved to Rochester, New York to move to RIT, I found out about spiritualism because that's the home of spiritualism. So I got very involved with spiritualism. So when I retired as a communication professor, I started doing research into spirit communication.
And you liked it because you stuck with it.
I stuck with it. Yeah, I wrote a book on physical mediumship, and I've stuck with it. And now what I'm doing is I'm starting to do writing about Cayce's idea of psychic development.
That's really interesting. And how are they connected when you have the spiritualist tradition of communication? And I think it's fascinating that you talk about being a spirit artist and a physical medium. I want to get back to that, but I want to kind of talk about the Edgar Cayce because that's so important to you right now. How are they connected for you?
What's interesting is that as I'm going back and taking some classes in spiritualism, because you always take classes, the topic that keeps coming up with people I'm working with is this whole idea of now soul readings and soul communication. And of course, to me, that ties all back to the Cayce work, because that was his idea. I mean, his idea of psychic communication is that it's an individual soul communicating with the God consciousness, or that gets into the Akashic Records. So it's communicating now. They're no longer just talking about communicating with deceased relatives. They're now talking about communicating on a soul level with people. And that's, of course, what Cayce did with his life readings. He would communicate with the soul of an individual, and he was able to go into the Akashic Records and see their past lives and give them insight into how they could improve their current life.
Right. He was about a lot about well-being and, like I said, physical healing, emotional, mental healing. And I read a number of his readings, and he's very concerned. His readings, he was asleep, trance, about their development on this earth plane. But we talk to spirit, when you're talking to spirit, somebody who's passed to the other side, is it a different kind of conversation for you?
Well, I mean, it's a different type of information. When I say that, I mean, you get, when you're communicating with a deceased individual, you're trying to get information from them about their life that you can communicate to the receiver. When you're communicating more on Akashic Records level, you're getting more information maybe about the person, maybe about something they did in a past life, which spiritualism doesn't want to deal with, is the past lives. Yeah. But you're also getting, it's, I don't know, you're getting to knowing, you're getting information about that person that might not necessarily be just a deceased individual. You might be just getting insight into their life.
Right. Do you think the deceased people that come, the loved ones that come from the other side and they're communicating, do you think they are situated or can bring you soul information to your life, or do you think they're mostly concerned with something else?
No, I think they can. I mean, I think they can have some insight into your life now and give you some encouragement, some support. I mean, I think that's what the message part of that is. I mean, because part of it is the evidential part, but part of it is also giving a message to help the person heal or help them in their life. And lots of times, people have said to me, I've given them a piece of information. They'll say, well, where did that come from? And I'll go back to spirit and I'll say, okay, who am I getting this from? And they'll tell me it's from your grandmother, or you're from your mother, or from, so that information can be coming from a deceased individual.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I wondered, I have, how can I say this? I communicate with Uncle Fred. And Uncle Fred had a certain way of looking at life and had a certain perspective of life. And he wouldn't necessarily have in-depth soul information from Uncle Fred. That wouldn't seem like it was something from Uncle Fred, if you know what I mean. And I want to, but on the other hand, Grandma could step in and say, here's this, and this. Do you ever talk to spirit guides or that soul connection during a mediumship?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, especially if, when you're doing, there's something we don't usually do in this day. It's called not evidential readings, but assessment readings. Right. And assessment readings are about the person's spiritual development and about their mediumship or about their psychic skills. So definitely when you're trying to do an assessment reading, you're trying to tap into the person's guides and tap into the higher entities that are working with them to get some of that information.
Yeah, I know I've had some sessions where clearly there was family wounding and family stress and trauma. And sometimes Uncle Fred could be the cause of that family trauma, where I've had a guide step in, a healer guide, step in and say, okay, now we need to work on this. I don't think Spirit's really interested in re-traumatizing anybody, but they're interested in healing.
Exactly. So, and we've had it a lot of times. We've had it happen where there's somebody who's passed and there was an incident or situation that they may not have been totally aware of on the earth plane, or they did something that caused a lot of pain and trauma, and they come back and they apologize and they try to make amends.
Very powerful. It's very powerful when that happens.
Yeah.
In your Now you've done soul readings as well. So if you were to take the mediumship out of the reading that you're wearing, this is an assessment reading maybe, and bring just a soul to soul connection. Well, how would you describe that?
Well, the assessment reading is a little bit different from a soul to soul kind of reading, because the assessment reading is I'm really trying to tap into the person's psychic abilities. So there's a real focus there. It's not just what do I do in my life or how do I fix my life. It's really like how do I develop further psychically. So you're focusing on something, and then part of that is, I would say, part of it's intuitive, part of it is just a claircognizance where the spirit world will give you information about people. And that's what happens to me when I know I move into a psychic level, is that if somebody's asking me a question, of course the famous one, will I get a boyfriend? Those types of readings, I can sometimes get some insight into the answer to that question. When I get insight, I don't know, the spirit world will just kind of tell me, things about the person. The typical one is, here's the one I remember. A friend of mine, really good friend of mine, had just broken up. It had a really bad relationship, and she was like really distraught, and she was thinking, oh, am I ever going to have another relationship? And all I remember is that the first thing the spirit world came in and told me was that, yes, she was going to have a relationship, but look for someone who's not physically the type of person you usually look for.
That's interesting.
I knew she wasn't going to meet somebody who was tall, dark, and handsome. I knew she was going to meet somebody that was a little more average. Not that he was bad looking, he wasn't, but that he was a little more average and maybe a little more balding than she normally went out with. So that was the first piece of information. And then sometimes they'll give me information like the kind of situation they might meet this person in. For like whether it's a professional, they're going to meet them professionally or meet them socially or something like that. So I can usually give them some insight, like, okay, look here or look there. And also I'll give them usually information which will say, watch your expectations. What are your expectations? Don't let your expectations overshadow a person you may meet. Really look at them realistically. So it's a very some of it's common sense type of advice, but it's usually it's directed towards that specific person.
Right, right.
That makes sense.
It does. And it's just reminding me of, I do the Akashic Record readings, I do the mediumship, but it reminds me in school where they said, well, be careful to get mediumship reading and know that there's a difference between psychic information and mediumship information, which I totally understand that. But when I go to do the soul readings, when I do the Akashic readings, I'm not psychic. I feel like I'm talking to a soul or spirit, or I feel like I'm still doing mediumship. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does, because that's the way I feel. I mean, I don't feel like sometimes I can get impressions from the person, but I feel they're giving me information. They're saying it to me. I'm not, they'll tell me stuff
Okay.
about the person. Yeah.
Using your psychic gifts to do it, but you're not necessarily going into their auric field and reading them psychically or doing a future casting from, I don't know where that comes from sometimes, but you're really truly talking to their soul, to their guides.
Yeah, to something in the spirit realm. I mean, I look at it this is there's the God consciousness, and the God consciousness has all of it. But the soul information actually is contained within the person. All of our soul information, all of our past lives, all of that stuff is contained within each and in every individual soul.
Sure.
So Cayce was being able to go in and read that information. It's not just he read the information off the aura too, but it wasn't just like, okay, you've got a problem with your knee, or you've got some, this chakra's a little bit off, or you need to ground yourself more, or those types of things. It definitely hits more spiritual guidance. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Exactly. He would, what I love about the Edgar Cayce work and I find it really important, but not always existent with other readers, is he recognized a problem in his trance and he gave an answer. He was not saying, oh, you have a bad knee, and then you're off. He was saying, and then you could rub castor oil on it, and then you could take these herbs, but also the knee represents this, this, and this, and then you could go, yeah, it's a healing path on over here. But yeah, it was the healing properties, healing pathway that was coming from another source.
Yes, yes, but the interesting thing is that sometimes he also used doctors who were in the spirit world. So sometimes he went to deceased personalities to get some of the information.
Did he really?
Yeah, I found that in the readings. Yeah, I really went through the his psychic development readings in a way that I know other people don't, because I looked at it from the point of view of being a medium. So I recognized all of these different things that most people don't recognize, that he spoke to his mother in the spirit world. He spoke to doctors in the spirit world when he needed medical information. He could read auras. He could read auras also when he was in a waking state. It wasn't just in a sleep state.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here's the great story that everybody keeps telling me. There was a great story about a woman who was working at the Cayce Center, and she got really upset and really mad about something. So she went storming down the hallway to Mr. Cayce's office. Edgar took one look at her, saw all the red around her aura, and said, "Go away and come back when you calm down."
Don't you want to do that with all your peoples?
That's right. Go away, come, read the aura. So no, and he could, and they have examples of him reading the auras of people when he was in a waking state. So, but he did it all. See, that was interesting. He did, and I'm trying to think if there's maybe some new types of psychic development we haven't thought of yet.
I think there are.
I think there probably are too. But I would say that every type of psychic development, from telepathy, I mean, he obviously did remote viewing to an extent, because he would get the address of the person before he did some of the readings, or a location of where they were. But so he did it all. He did telepathy, he did mediumship, he did psychic work. But his idea of psychic communication is very different from anything that we talk about.
Interesting.
And so this is what my mission is, working with the Cayce Center, is to get Cayce's view of psychic communication more into the teachings at the Cayce Center. I mean, and I'm trying this through a variety of different channels to do it. But I mean, for example, when they did psychic development, everybody I've spoken to, they've never included the Cayce readings.
Interesting. So what are they basing it on? What's their...
They're just basing it on whatever people think psychic development is.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, so...
That you're doing, then you're finding the root of Cayce.
That's right. So I'm going to the root and I'm saying, okay, if you're going to study Cayce, this is the first step. The first step is the soul development. Now, what's happened is that because people, and he would never teach it. He would never teach psychic development, per se. He only would teach soul development, or he would instruct on soul development, not psychic development. Then he said, as your soul develops, the psychic development will evolve and will come forward. So there's nobody been there that really understands psychic development from a practical point of view, put it that way, from a practical perspective. So they all teach it from the search for God, which is the search for soul development, which is very important and very helpful to a lot of people, but there's a disconnect there between the psychic skills, I'll call them the psychic skills, and the soul development, because they don't think about it like we do. we have just talked about, in terms there are many different levels of psychic development, which starts as intuition, could be as simple as intuition, and can go all the way up to reading the Akashic Records. But, what are all those steps in between,
We've talked about this offline a lot, and my philosophy has been, I call it the five languages of your soul, and how you blend with your soul, and how your psychic, your creative sense, your emotions connect to your intuition, and your intuition will take you to your soul, and your soul will take you to source, which is the Akashic Records. It's the pathway is, for me, very different than the regular psychic developing your player's pathway. And I find that with my students and with myself, there's a blossoming of a deeper understanding, not just picking up information that you can't see, which is important, but it's picking up the Akashic realm. The what does God want us? Well, careful with the word God, but what does Source want us to know? What does our higher self want us to understand about our lives right now? And I think
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's where it is, and especially when you see situations, and I'm going to step on some toes, but I hope I don't, where you see certain, even some spiritualist things, or some followers fall apart because, like you said, they're going with their own philosophies of what psychic is all about, and losing that connection to that higher power that used to be what everything was about, that higher power.
Exactly.
So I'm excited to hear your work. I've always been excited to hear your work and what you're doing, but I'm glad you're going in this direction.
So this is the direction I'm going in. Yeah. And it's very much, it's like, even there's a lot, there are tricks, let's face it. There are tricks to looking like a medium. There are tricks to doing psychic work. When I say tricks, the asking the questions, the reaching, but there are, people can give the impression of doing psychic work without ever really tapping into the spirit.
Yeah. Well, yes, I've seen that many times. And when I see that in mediums, or somebody, or student or something, what I'm looking for from them, or what I'm looking for myself when I'm working, is the message work. What is the spirit? What are their soul? What does that higher power want to say to them? So it's not necessarily always proving the continuity of life or describing something that's amazing. You have my address. What is it that your pathway on this earth is about? So the message needs to be connected to that higher power, to that spiritual sense of, there's a growth, and there's a learning, and there's a progression. We're supposed to progress further than our ancestors, we're supposed to go further.
Well, we are, and I think that we are progressing. Even though we have chaos and turmoil and craziness in the world, we as people are progressing, because look at it, more people are developing their psychic skills and abilities, and maybe psychic isn't even the best word for it, but they're getting that sense of being able to communicate with the spirit world, and more people are doing it.
They want to do it, and what is your thought on that? That more and more people are really interested in mediumship, or interested in this kind of development. Is it that we're progressing as people, or?
Well, yeah, I think so. But then also you have to realize that part of it, the developing, is not developing as a medium to go out and do readings for people, but just on a personal level, being able to connect with your own loved ones in the spirit world. Being able to connect with that spirit, that child who's passed away, or that husband who's passed away, and continue that feeling of love that's there, and know that they're not gone. They really are still with us and part of us. And I think that's a very important aspect of, quote, mediumship, but it's personal kinds of mediumship. And I think Cayce advocated that all the time. He was saying, before you go to the medium, look within yourself. can you feel it within yourself? Do you sense it within your soul?
I love that message. It's a beautiful message.
Yeah, and that is, so the message is not that we all have to go and become mediums to give messages and make money and do this, but it's a connection with the spirit world. And there's this one Cayce reading that I absolutely love, where Cayce's asked by a woman, she had a dream, and in her dream, she saw her mother. So she asked Mr. Cayce, actually, this is two readings combined, but basically there was a dream about asking him whether or not people from the spirit world could communicate with us here on the earth plane. And Cayce's answer was, it's as easy as a kiss. It's the love. It's the love between the people in the spirit world and the people here on the earth plane that allows us to be able to communicate. Now, of course, what happens is that some people are so grief-stricken that blocks their ability to communicate with their loved one. But
yeah, and you give it time. Give it time when that's when you're struggling in deep in grief. But let your soul, let your spirit, let your physical body go through the process, and it will come. It will come in time when you're ready. I'm wondering, you've read from the Akashic Records plenty of times. What kind of reading do you get from the Akashic Records? When we do mediumship, we're proving the continuity of life. This is Uncle Fred. He didn't have much hair. He wore bifocals and this, that, and the other thing. So you set that aside and you're going straight into the Akashic realm. What kinds of things do you discover? What do they say?
Well, and it's interesting because as a spiritualist medium, we don't do past lives. But I have to say, one of the things that did start to be revealed to me was people's past lives.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is the value of past lives? I wonder why spiritualism doesn't go for it. But
I know why spiritualism doesn't go for it. You can't prove it. You can't prove it. And I have a very, what should I say, maybe unique perspective on this past life thing. Because I see people, oh my goodness, I see people that so into it. They're like, oh, I had 27 past lives and I've resolved them all in my mind. I'm like, what? Meanwhile, I'll have a dream or I'll have a vision of something that's past. And so I just really say to myself, okay, what is this past situation trying to tell me? Not that I'm not identifying it with, oh, this is my past life when I was here. I say, okay, what is this past situation trying to tell me about my life now? What's it trying to, what information is it trying to give me? So I look at it kind of open and not locked into, but I do believe in past lives. You have to if you're doing Cayce work.
Yeah. Yes. But I wanted to just take a quick little sidebar and just talk about how can people get a hold of you? What would you like people to know about you? We have the spiritartgallery.net, but what else would?
Yeah, that's all my information's up there on the website. Yeah.
Are you still doing readings for people, or?
I am doing readings for people. I don't do it as a total business, but if people want a reading, I will do one for them. People find me in different ways to do readings.
So Susan Barnes, you are on Facebook as Susan Barnes. I can reach you that way.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people named Susan Barnes, so
so
not that easy to find me that way.
You could, but spiritartgallery.net, I think it had a connect with Susan button or a place where they could email you.
It has all the information written on the website. But the other way they can find me is, of course, through the Victor Zamet stuff. Because I teach classes on the Victor Zamet Zoom site. And Nick Victor's mailing list that he sends out every week. Post all the classes and things that I do. So.
Oh, his name is Z-A.
ZAMMIT, BICTORZAMMIT.com/Zoom. And you'll go to all the Zoom lectures that they have done for the past 7 years.
Goodness. All right.
And there are a lot. So, and they're on all kinds of subjects about the afterlife.
Oh, that's
Afterlife and mediumship. Yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. So
It's a fabulous resource.
I want to go look him up. I don't think I've ever listened to one of the lectures. I find that fascinating. So Susan, we're going to do in June, I call a psychic sampler. We call it Body, Mind, and Soul. And I wanted to get that in before anyone gets ready to go, before they're driving home and they're almost home, and I want to get this in.
Yeah, well, it's a conference. This is the third one that I've done in Lilydale. It's a week before the season opens. So the last day that the conference ends, Lilydale opens. So if people want to stay for the monks, the Tibetan monks or anything, they can. The nice thing about it is we kind of have Lilydale to ourselves because everybody hasn't come yet. And I try to, it's experiential. Everything we do is based on classes and doing things. It's not lectures, which is the difference between my conferences and other people's conferences. So it's all working types of activities. But I try to do a whole bunch of different types of activities so people get a chance to kind of experiment and test out different types of psychic skills. So some of it may work for you, some of it may not, but you have a chance to try it all.
You're talking about, we have 3 classes, 3 2-hour classes every day.
Right.
Lunch
Plus
break.
an evening event.
It's an evening event. You have Victorian teas, you have tarot, and you have some physical phenomena exploration, mediumship roundtable, all really interesting things.
Yeah, so we do, and again, it's all going to be participation this year. And this year, our big thing is that we have people that are, I call them we all call them Ghostbusters. We have people that are going to be doing psychic research in the buildings and looking for ghosts around Lilydale.
The Wyoming Valley, I think Ghost Hunters or something.
Yeah, the Wyoming Valley Ghost Hunters are going to be there, and they're a good, very experienced group. And the difference between what they're doing and what other people have done is they're not just talking the talk; they are actually going to do it. So we have events.
They're going to be on the podcast in March. They're going to come on. So if anyone is interested in hearing more about them, please come on March and look for the podcast. But I'm excited. Tell me what, I interrupted you. They're going to.
Well, it's going to be a full day. We have our full day of workshops, we have our evening events, and then after our evening events, we have other events, which are not, which are just open to whoever wants to come to them. And the other events include, we're going to look at the hotel, ghost busting in the hotel, the auditorium, the stump, and the assembly hall. So we want to go, those are the buildings we want to go into.
All right. I'm 100% in for that one. That hotel has had a lot of activity. The stump has had a tremendous amount of activity. All the places you mentioned. And I couldn't imagine why they wouldn't, because there have been people coming for hundreds of years to study mediumship.
Yeah, so we'll do that. And then, of course, those groups will have to be smaller, so it'll just have to be, I'm trying to do enough things after hours so that if people want to do something, they can, but everybody can't do the same thing.
Right.
That makes sense.
So for people who want to sign up, is it through Lilydale that they sign up?
Yes, it's through lilydaleassembly.org. You can sign up for the conference. I've tried to keep it reasonably priced. You will get full we start the night before. We're going to do, we'll have all full 4 days, and I'm covering everything. We're covering a little bit of physical mediumship. We're covering mental mediumship. We're covering psychic development, plus all kinds of other things with the ghost hunting, with the we're doing tarot this year. Yeah, which is great, and because I'm now doing tarot, which is and so yeah, it's a whole bunch of different types of things for people to explore.
Wonderful. We're going to have a little bit of Akashic Records there as well.
Yeah, we have the Akashic Records. We have a remote viewing class. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a sampler. I get literally of everything. So you may find something that you want to dive into and study more deeply.
A little trance, a little cabinet work for physical. Yeah, we cover a broad range of everything.
So if you sign up for this workshop, you also will have to find a place to stay, and we recommend most places will be open on Lily Dale. You'll be able to find a place.
And the hotel will be open, so if they want to do a little of their own exploration in the hotel, they can.
I heard so many stories of people that weren't exploring anything, and there was something there.
I've had the bed vibrate in there.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, I've had the bed vibrating in there. And of course, the third floor is the floor that has the most activity.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I don't know if you know how the hotel was built, but the third floor in the hotel was actually the stables originally. They moved the building up like this. Where they built it. I'm not kidding. So the ground floor was moved to the second floor and then moved to the third floor.
It's a crazy building. Well, that's going to be interesting. I'll have to hang out there some night just to feel.
Plus you've got all those wonderful paintings there.
Oh my gosh! The precipitated paintings? There's many of them hanging in the hotel, and they're made. Most of them. Well, no, there's the Bang sisters, but then there's the Campbell brothers. Some Campbell brother paintings are there.
Yeah, the Campbell brother paintings are in the hotel. A lot of the Bank sisters paintings are, although I think there's one in there, are in the museum.
Yeah, definitely see the museum. It's the most amazing thing, precipitated art. We could have a whole show on that, but we're not going to do that today. So I wanted to shift over to talking about this physical mediumship. You've been studying that, but I was with you when you were doing some effort work. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the apports, throughout my life, I've had apports appear in different places, in different situations, not just in the seance cabinet. I know, but when you were there, we had a bunch of apports appear because I was sitting in the cabinet. Originally, I was sitting in the cabinet for trance work and doing trance mediumship. And then somebody told me, no, you're a physical medium. And I'm like, what? And I don't really sit down and practice it as much as I should. But we had this incident where we were working in the cabinet and apports started to appear. They started to fall out of the ceiling. They fell out of the ceiling. They appeared in the water bowl. They appeared under the seat of my chair. They've appeared all around the room. I found apports around the room.
I was sitting with you and one fell right between my feet. It was like boom. I'm like, what happened? Yeah, it was amazing.
Which one did you? I don't know which one that was.
This beautiful tiny stone that was cut in half, and it had something in the middle of it. It was kind of rough. It wasn't a stone that came in on somebody's shoes. It was definitely. You're not ready to go?
Yeah, I had it's interesting. I had a piece of rose quartz come in, and then I had a piece of what's that stone? That's the meteorite stone.
Right?
Well,
no. Tecton, and then
not the tektite, the other one that's green. Moldavite, that's it. So they brought in moldavite and they brought in rose quartz.
Oh, how lovely. Yeah,
and we brought in coins, and then I've got it on me to pull it out. They brought me this little piece, which is a Mother Mary medallion.
Oh, It's beautiful.
Yeah, so they brought me the Mother Mary medallion, and they brought through some other things which were fun, which were a lot of fun.
You've been asking for a ring. You were talking to somebody and you said you've always brought rings. You brought in a ring. Describe this ring.
Okay, this is a really funny story. Okay, so the apports start coming through, and the apports are coming through a week after Bill Bolt passed away. Now, Bill Bolt was this phenomenal physical medium, and so the stuff was coming through, and it was kind of humorous, some of the things that were coming through, so we all thought of Bill. So I said to myself, I didn't tell anybody else. I said to myself, we went into the seance, and I said to myself, I said, okay, Bill, if it's really you, I want my ring. Now, the story was that I was in a seance with Bill, and there were 13 women, and he apported 12 rings. And I was number 13, so I was the only woman in the room that did not get a ring. I got a beautiful stone instead. And so I said, Bill, okay, give me my ring. So what comes through? So this ring comes through, but it's a kid's toy ring. It's a toy ring that's an angel. It sticks up like this. It's got this little angel that sticks up on top. It's plastic. And it's got a little button. So when you push the button, the angel lights up.
Yes, it was the best thing ever.
It was, and I mean, the thing is, we all knew it was Bill because somebody has to have a real sense of humor for this, you know. So it was like she's asking for a ring, so I'll show her, you know. Now, where he found this, where Spirit found this, we have no idea. We can't figure it out. But it was the funniest thing in the world.
I tell you, there's just no way you had anything like that in that environment at all. It was it's like a gumball, you know.
There's no way, I mean, and there's no way, and this is the good thing, there's no way you could look it up on Amazon and buy it.
Nope.
Or eBay, you know. This was not something you could find anywhere you could think of. So
It was such a proof and such a unique thing, and we all were laughing so hard. And that's what brings in Spirit is laughter. Yeah, and it was very comforting. And sometimes apports, when we talk about them and other people say, what is that? What do you mean it comes out of the blue? Can sound scary or can sound like woo-woo. But this was loving and funny and
definitely Bill. But then I get apports, like for example, all right, I started studying the tarot. So in this night, I'm in Virginia Beach. So in the Virginia Beach house, which is starting to get apports, I'm starting to get coins here. So I'm sitting in my living room, and all of a sudden I look over by the window and I see a card stuck next to the windowsill. And I look at this thing and I say, what is this? It was one of the tarot cards from my deck that was upstairs, was apported downstairs by the window.
oh boy, that is something. What card was it?
Oh, it was a good one. I think it was the sun, something like it was one of the major arcana. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, how does this happen? And then it's interesting. I lost the last apport I got from Bill. I lost, and yesterday I found it. It got stuck behind a chest of drawers I had, and I hadn't moved the chest of drawers in months. So as soon as I moved the chest of drawers, there it was in the little pouch I put it in.
Oh, phew. I'm glad you found it.
I know. So I found this. Now I have to make a necklace out of it. This was one of Bill's. This is one of Bill's apports.
Oh, gosh. I see a little bit of it. It's very nice.
Yeah, he always gave me. Here we go.
Oh, wow. Look at
Yeah,
that.
he always gave me the big stones because he knew I made jewelry. So he's given me these beautiful big stones. I have a peridot from him that I looked up. It's got to be worth thousands and thousands of dollars, but of course you can never sell it. Yeah, you
Wow.
can't. So yeah, this came from him and that came from him, and so this new one is a beautiful piece. It's a citrine. It's a yellowy orange citrine. It's square. It's a little square citrine. It's beautiful.
It's lovely. It's just amazing. I found the whole thing fascinating. And the before I want to trance mediumship and the cabinet. Talk a little bit about that for people who don't quite know. See, cabinet. It's in a closed environment, and there's a red light, or it's dimly lit.
Yeah, well, most people when they're doing physical mediumship, they work in the dark because when the traditional way that it's done is that the medium's body combined with the divine and spirit energies create this substance together called ectoplasm. So ectoplasm generally doesn't like light. So that's why the red light or the dark light for it working that way. And so the cabinet is really, it's just, it contains the energy. It's like a, how do I say it, incubator, spirit incubator, trying to get the energy to form and collect and gather. Yeah. But I have to say that when I first built my cabinet in Lilydale, which is quite a cabinet, it's a big heavy wooden cabinet, I could sense the presence of mediums from the Dale, past mediums from the Dale coming to visit me.
How nice is that? How nice is that? Must have been a beautiful feeling and wonderful sensation.
Now, my next door neighbor told me that when I was using the cabinet, she would get phenomena in her house.
Get over here.
Yeah, she would be getting phenomena going on in her house. But we've started, the other thing that's happened, we've been getting stuff falling off the walls. I mean, I got a trumpet that came out. I have a shelf of trumpets that came out over the shelf like this and then tipped over. But it came out far enough so that it didn't hit the TV set that was right in front of it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Amazing when things move like that. Just amazing.
And we've had stuff come off the walls. We've had stuff falling off the walls too.
Is the plasma moving the things, or is it's some kind of other energy?
Well, there's two ways you can do it. It's either the ectoplasma, which can be in a kind of vaporous form, or a form that you don't see, or it could be energy. There's also energy physical mediumship. So it's either done energetically or it's done through ectoplasm.
Did you know? I just found out. I just wrote it down. It's this book called "The New Science of Heaven," and it's by Temple, a fellow I think it's Robert Temple, and he talks about plasma being in heaven. It's the energy of creation, plasma. And I said, well, that's the ectoplasm that the spiritualists use. So there's this, and now the scientist is talking about plasma. I just wanted to bring that up to you and to my listeners, that science is connecting to the spiritualists.
Well, they have been. They're getting closer. The science and the spirit are getting closer. Yeah, and some of the things we're learning, quantum physics, things like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, and I also wanted to ask you, for the longest time, physical mediumship was quiet, and now it's picking up again. Is that your sense of things, or?
Yes and no. I mean, the interesting thing is it kind of comes and goes. There are very few people now really in the United States that are doing what we really call physical mediumship, like Michael Shane, people like that. The loss of Bill was a big hit in developing mediums. So there are very few mediums that not publicly, semi-publicly demonstrate it. But there are lots of people that we don't know about, that we never hear about, that are practicing it.
Okay, so yeah, there is a lot of how can I say this? I notice when some physical mediums come forward, they're put on microscopic. They're really put on the line there, and they can be heavily criticized. So it's not a particularly easy thing to bring forward to the public.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories about physical people who started with physical mediumship, but have had to stop fairly early on because of illness or.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Does it
yeah.
cause illnesses, or is it just using up a lot of physical energy within your body? The plasma's coming from your body. Is this?
Well, it can. That's how some people get hurt because the ectoplasm is physically coming from the person's body and generating things. So that's how it's going out of the person's body. That's why. So if there's a bright light or a loud noise or something that shoots it back into the person's body quickly, then they can get injured.
Yes, I know
Yeah.
a man who got
Yeah.
from that, and it took him. He's still recovering from it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's also can be very dangerous if you're working with people that don't know what they're doing, and that and there can be an accident. So that's why I think that a lot of people have kept it quiet. Although I do think there are people that are experimenting with it. Like for me, it's interesting. The physical mediumship just kind of happens.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's not like, and a lot of these people sit for years and years and years and years. For me, it just kind of happens, but I'm not about to go out on the road and do a road show because I haven't developed it to the point where it's that consistent.
Well, your gifts are that are being used right now by spirit are very important, I would say. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in here. And
They seem to, when I try to do readings or a lot of readings, they seem to put a monkey wrench in it, and they seem to be pointing me more in the direction of doing the research and doing the writing and doing the work that I'm doing, especially the Cayce work. And I know I've made strides there. Because the research I've been doing, I was part of their speaker program, and so many of them are very aware of the work that I've done, and I'm trying to make them more aware of it. In fact, I'll say this way: we're trying to start a new study group that is, for me, it would be the prototype of really developing a Cayce kind of approach to psychic development on a practical level.
lovely. That would, boy, keep us informed.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I believe the Cayce Center really needs, is they really need a practical Cayce approach to psychic development. Not that some of this other stuff wouldn't come in, not that, in fact, I'm working with a woman who does dowsing, and dowsing is, I mean, I've done it, experimented with it, I'm sure I can do it, but I just not something I've developed as a skill, and so her skills are very different from my skills. And we did a group the other night talking about soul development, and this woman came in and said, well, I'm not really a medium. Do I belong here? And I said, well, Cayce's view on psychic development is that it starts with intuition. So, so the psychic development is everything from intuition to reading the Akashic Records. And so part of the challenge is finding where do you fit in that spectrum,
Where are your gifts? Where are you called?
Right.
What's your mission here?
Exactly.
Perfect.
So I think that's what needs to be explored, And of course you do that by doing things like our conference, where people get an opportunity to try all these different things and see what they can relate to.
Absolutely. And which is so exciting about these conferences, these psychic samplers. At some point, maybe you'll take that on the road, but it would be interesting. Well, I just am really grateful that you came in, and to hopefully you'll come back later in the spring when it gets closer.
Maybe we'll talk more about spirit art. We didn't get too much about art.
Assistant spirit, my favorite thing ever. You are a spirit artist, and so am I, and we've worked together before, and it was just terrific.
Yeah, in fact, that's the one thing. If you come down, I proposed what we would do is we would do a demonstration of the spirit art because they have never seen it down here.
They haven't? Oh my gosh.
They've seen it online, but they don't have people that physically do it.
Well,
Yeah.
when do you want me? Half an hour? I'll come down. That could be done in a few hours. Would love it.
I just want to say one more thing about the Cayce thing and spirit art. Cayce believed that the ultimate is creative energy and creative force, and that the creative energy is with the God force. So when we do the spirit art, this is why it's so important to do it.
So the spirit art, when you say that, I want to throw in, just push this a little bit. When I think of art, I think of drawing, I think of painting, but I think that there's a lot of art forms that spirit can work through. And that would be a wonderful psychic sampler. It's all the different ways the creative forces, spirit can come through the creative forces. Let's think about it someday.
Yeah, well, think about that. No, that would be it, but I would have to do it with writing. I'd have to do it with writing. I have to do it with all kinds of things. And I have a friend who does angel writing.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. Another Nancy. Her name's also Nancy. And so I work with her, and so she gets direct messages from the angels.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I have a friend who gets poetry from the angels. So she'll sit in a circle and she'll bring messages, and it's poetry. It's phenomenal. So yeah, I love that you said Cayce is the creative energy is from God. That's hopefully I paraphrase that correctly, but yeah.
So that would be another option for down here. I mean, they need more art. They haven't taken me up on it yet, but there are a couple of Cayce types of things. They do. He does these aura drawings. He also does these thing called soul seals, and the soul seals are similar to auragraphs in that you do a meditation and you get the different images for your soul seal, and then you draw them and create the image from that.
Oh, I'd love to see a few of them done. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah. I've done it a couple times. I'm going to do it more. I'm doing it in Lilydale, but not until August.
Okay, I have to make 2 trips up there.
So, but anyway, yes, no, it's all very good. All very good.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait to talk to you again in a couple months, and we'll get. I'm just getting excitement around this psychic sampler workshop, which
And the best thing, here's the best thing. The best thing is that the people who come make all of these wonderful friends.
Oh yeah.
And we still have people from the first one we did 3 years ago coming and being part of it and interacting with us. So it's a wonderful experience.
I know that I went last year as a participant, and I had a blast. Had amazing roommates. I really enjoyed myself, learned a lot, and played a lot. When you feel like you know a lot of stuff, but you just don't want to know it anymore. You just want to learn more stuff. It's the best feeling ever. I don't feel like I know a lot, but I learned a tremendous amount, even after studying spiritualism for all the years I did, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
So yeah, this time we're going to have a lot of fun.
We will absolutely. So for now, I'm going to invite everybody to go on lilydaleassembly.org and take a look at what's being offered, and go to Susan's site, spiritartgallery.net, and see what it's all about over there, and use your creativity, guys. As I sign off, what is it that you do creatively that speaks to you, that makes you feel happy, that makes you feel good, whether it's cooking, flower arranging, writing, doing poetry, anything, and just let your soul talk to you through that creativity and see where it takes you. And so for now, go in love, go in peace, stay safe, and remember, that you're not alone. Spirit is with you.
All the time.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.